All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of O365Eh. In this episode, we have a returning guest. We have Chris Bardon from Computer Talk here to talk to us about their contact center ICE platform and how it relates to Microsoft Teams and integrates with Teams, and some things about the API and some of their roadmap side of things. So welcome again, Chris, back to the podcast. I'm really happy to have you back. So for those listeners that didn't listen to our previous podcast with you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Computer Talk?
Sure. Well, I mean, you can go back and listen to that one first because it's probably in the playlist right down there. But I'm Chris Bardon. I'm the Chief Software Architect at Computer Talk. We are a Canadian-based contact center as a service platform. And we've been working with Microsoft since OCS. So we've been through the whole UC journey with Microsoft lately. The latest place we've landed is on Teams. So ICE Contact Center. If you live in Canada, you've probably interacted with it. If you live in the US, you might have interacted with it too. We're all over the place. We have, it's a horizontal contact center platform that specializes in integration with the Microsoft stack.
Oh, perfect, Chris. So it's been a year since our last episode. Can you maybe talk about, how, the evolution of the platform? I know it was originally the back end of ICE was actually powered by Skype for Business.
Mm-hmm.
You must have transitioned, or maybe you're still using Skype, but you've, transitioned to a more of a Teams first type contact center. So maybe talk about that evolution of the back end platform.
Sure. I mean, yeah, obviously Skype's gotten to be a dirty word now. I mean, everyone's trying to forget about it. I mean, you've got a couple months left on Skype Online. In theory, we're getting Skype for Business Server V next this year. We'll see what happens with that. But I mean, the evolution of the platform has really been around taking a more Teams first approach to things. And what we've been doing there is really trying to concentrate on how we deliver a contact center experience to a Teams customer. So that customer that's gone and adopted Teams as their UC platform, how does contact center play in that? So where we've really taken a lot of bets is on things like the agent interface is completely embedded within Teams now. So rather than forcing agents off to some bespoke UC platform that is taking calls in a web browser, or maybe it's a web application that's got a WebSoft phone that's plugged into Teams as a tab, but that's the extent of your integration. We take it a step further, and the media is all in Teams. So calls, voice calls are Teams calls, chats are Teams IMs, emails are emails, but you can look at your email in Teams. So we've got a way to give agents that kind of single pane of glass view through a new Teams-based agent interface that actually deploys as a graph bot. So it's a bot that uses a lot of adaptive cards, and we could push updated information to agents. But then it's also looking at how that integrates into a customer's workflow. So, a contact comes into the contact center, and you right away want to be able to push contacts to that. So in kind of the more traditional contact center, that is driven by things like screen pop. We have an agent desktop application that will get information from the IVR, might go look up at a CRM and then pop that information in another window to the agent. So what we do is we surface all of that in Teams now. So in the Teams interaction on that contact card, now I've got information that's coming from the carrier. I've got information from Dynamics, let's say, about open support tickets, and maybe I've got something on there that I can even action right away that is that's on the interactions. That's bringing something into Teams. And now, what we actually do with Teams is we let people take that interaction and now action that back to the collab space. So I could take that interaction card now and say, okay, now I'm going to cross-post this to a channel. So, now maybe I've got my back channel where I've got something open for an incident. Let's say, let's say there's a service outage. Here's all the people that have to be contacted again when service gets restored, or here's this is a trend we're seeing. Okay, how could you help with this? So it's closing the loop on that, and then obviously now I can go from that channel and redo a tracked outbound interaction. So when you look at Teams, it's really trying to use Teams like it's Teams, right? So it's the media handling, it's the collab stuff. So that's really what we've gone to evolve with Teams these days.
That's excellent. And I'm guessing to support all that, being pretty different than Skype for Business, you've probably had to make some architecture changes on your your hosted platform and kind of the product overall to connect into these tenants.
Yeah, it's from an architecture standpoint, actually, there's some really smart stuff in the Teams platform. Like we took a fairly heavy bet on direct routing for voice connectivity, and kind of back in the old days, we were running cloud service contact center and connecting to agents out through Federation, mostly with Skype for Business, and kind of the beginning of Teams. And Federation is great because there's sort of a zero touch deployment with that. It's really fast to get up and running, but you notice fairly quickly that there's a lot of hops to go through, and the more hops you go through, the more you have chances of introducing call delays. And when an agent says, when they get alerted to say, hey, there's a call coming, if it takes 10 seconds for that call to connect to someone, there's a problem. So direct routing has been a great help for us there. And what we do is actually, so we run direct routing in basically a carrier model. So we have, in our environment, we've got the multi-tenant direct routing SBC. We go to a customer that we want to bring on with the direct routing connectivity. We say, great, here, run this PowerShell script to add our SBC into your tenant, and now we can send calls to your users. And it's straight DID. It doesn't monkey with anything that they've already got for direct routing, but it lets us do it at a density. If we were to try and have done this back at Skype for Business, we would have needed an SBC for every single customer we tried to bring on. So the fact that we can multi-tenant this is great. I'm really glad Microsoft thought of that. So that was, that's sort of the one big architectural piece there. The other is, some things we're doing around looking at new ways to use the cloud APIs. And really that's things like, we've just got a new capability now where we can actually let customers bring their own telephony to the contact center using Microsoft as a telco. So that's saying, I can go into the Azure port, the M365 portal. I can acquire a phone number. I can assign it to an app that's running in our Azure tenant that then says, hey, this points at my contact center. So now all that, that inbound toll free, and whatever geo you want is now terminating. What that means is that if you're, say, overseas, that toll-free number terminates on a geolocal SBC, then routes to us through direct routing over the Microsoft backplane, and the latency is really good, actually, a lot better than you'd expect. Like I tried this. We actually tried this. A local Toronto number. We're in Toronto, and a number. I tried, so it was you've got kind of your baseline latency. There was maybe half a second more when I used a Microsoft number in New Zealand from my cell phone. So I'm talking about bouncing a call from like Toronto to Auckland and then back over the internet to our data center. Like that adds maybe half a second. It's pretty impressive. And I mean, obviously you're not going to be calling overseas like that, but for someone who's geolocal, like it's cool to be able to use those calling APIs in new ways. And that's the kind of thing we're there's some more stuff on the roadmap that we're doing under that, but yeah. So yeah, there's constantly evolution of the platform, and that's what's really cool about running this as a cloud service is that, as a cloud service, as a service provider, we can just iterate on this stuff as we come up with new ideas. So we're not tied to this like old on-prem version, major version lift and shift upgrade. We can say, hey, we got a new feature. We can push that out and get that out to our install base. A whole lot more, whole lot easier.
That's great detail. Kind of along that same line. So I believe Contact Center ICE, from Computer Talk, is one of the first to be certified for Teams. Yep. So how was that certification process? I know that was probably a long one that was in beta and preview and that, but you made it through the gates.
Mm-hmm. We did. Yeah, I think we were actually the second ones to finish. Anywhere 365 beat us by like a week.
Okay.
But it was a process this time, and it's funny. This is the fourth time we've done contact center cert with Microsoft. Different Skype for Business releases, Link releases back in the day, and what's different this time? This time it's a whole lot more extensive. Like before, it was really here's a fairly basic test plan. They had a third-party lab validate it, and they said, okay, you're good to go. It's a stamp. There's a line on a website, and that was really kind of what the program was. This time, there's a lot more to it. There's there's more agreements. They're doing more assessments. So it's not just basic functionality of the APIs, but it's the security assessments. So we'd already done we've done PCI and we've done SOC. So we had a lot of that was covered there. But there was even things they were asking about that were above and beyond some of those things. So they're making sure you have data privacy policies in place, and how are you handing off tickets between Microsoft support and Computer Talk support. So there's really a much more holistic view of how contact center partners are gonna work now, and that's why there's a smaller number of them. I think the table stakes have gone up, and as such, I think the service levels have gone up. So I think the idea is that by buying into something that's a live service, because let's face it, I mean, Teams is a moving target. Right. So it's not just a commitment from the partners to continue supporting Teams, but it's a commitment from Microsoft to continue supporting the partners. So that means that they're not going to push out updates necessarily that break our solution. So that's that. There's a lot. There's more to it this time, I think, is the biggest answer. So that's why it took longer. Yeah, this was about. This was a several month process to get this one done, but and it's not a one and done thing. Is the other difference? Like there's a requirement that everyone in that program keeps current. So as material changes the platform rollout, I mean they're going through and saying, look, we got to go through and test it all again because we made this change or you've rolled out this change, so we got to make sure that everything is up to date. So it's. Yeah, it's a good program this time around, and hopefully that means that the solutions will be better.
So maybe that's a good segue, Chris, into the next question topic. When I go to the Teams contact center site, which lists all the current certified vendors, and you see Computer Talk there,
mm-hmm.
What struck me was these new models that they list further down the page. So if you go to docs.microsoft.com for our viewers and listeners, Microsoft Teams or Teams Contact Center, if you just do a search for that, you'll find all the list of current certified contact center vendors, and it is a short list. And you'll see the ones currently in certification too. But then if you scroll down a bit, you'll see these models called Connect and Extend, and Power. And I'm like, what the heck are these things? And so, and it's interesting, and maybe talk us through those,
sure.
Chris, and tell us, like, do you fit into one of those or all of them? Like, how do they work?
So I'll give you my answer to this, and my interpretation of it and what you might get from Microsoft may be a little different, but I think materially, they're pretty much the same. So the Connect model is really. At the lowest level, can I get a call from the contact center to Teams? And the difference there is it doesn't necessarily mean the contact center call is on Teams. And in fact, in most cases, it's not. So this is the Genesis model. Like Genesis is, the big dog in the room. They wanted to say, Microsoft wanted to say, hey, we work with Genesis. And what Genesis can do is they can take a call that lands in Genesis and throw it over the wall to Teams. And that's about it. So when throw it over the wall means you're blind transferring the call out of another platform. They lose visibility of the call. They lose any recording, any stats tracking on that. But it transferred, right? And the use case there is saying, well, okay, I want to have an agent transfer to a subject matter expert, so I can do a toss out to an SME, and that means that. It's kind of the Connect. The Connect is really around basic media connectivity. So that's where a lot of the direct routing stuff comes in. SBC to SBC connectivity. So I mean, it's good to be there, and that's kind of a good baseline. But it's really not doing anything Teams like. It's really just saying, I've got basic media connectivity. So, you go a level up from that, and you get into connect and extend, and that's really where we kind of play. That's saying that you're doing the basic media connectivity, but you're doing more with Teams. So that's where we've done things like the agent UI embedded in Teams and the supervisor UI embedded in Teams, and then even being able to do stuff like mid call. You can, while you've got an application listening in on the call, I can send an actionable alert to an agent. So, hey, maybe you want to transfer this to this other, retention group, or, maybe here's an offer you want to present. That can, traditionally where that would be again like a web-based screen pop. This is something we can push right into Teams because we have those hooks into the client through the bot framework. And then getting up to extend and power, like that's sort of the stuff I was talking about, where we're taking and being able to do things like I can actually accept calls on Microsoft telephony systems. So so I could take a service number or a direct routing number that's provisioned and pointing at a graph application and connect that into my contact center. So that's when you're using some of the native Microsoft services to do things within the contact center. So, really, I don't think there's not a solution on the market today that is 100% powered by the Graph APIs. They're not quite there yet to do all of the things, at least that we're doing. There's some basic conference manipulation things you can do right now. It's getting better, but for what we're doing, what we're looking for right now is how can we use those Graph APIs to supplement the platform that we've got and be more, really to be more Teams-like, and use those Teams flows the way they're meant to be.
Good stuff. One of the questions I had, Chris, was given that this is sort of a new product, new platform for customers that were on the old one, which was more Skype for Business centered. Is there a migration path to the new platform?
Yep. And again, this is anybody that was in our cloud already. We can move them over to Teams. Like the migration from from an ICE standpoint is actually really easy. I mean, the difference between saying, you're an agent who's using a PSTN hookup for their line, or a PBX line, or a Skype line to go to Teams is we change the connection address on our side, or even the agent changes it themselves. Like they change where their login points, and so from a migration standpoint, like if you've got someone who's not on Teams yet and wants to bring their contact center on, like we can work through that migration real well. We've got some customers. I know, I think it was one of Dino's we worked with that did a very large Teams migration that the contact center was part of, and that went fairly really smoothly from what I remember. So from a connectivity standpoint, everything goes across. From a application customization, we've got a fairly rich call flow engine that all comes forward because of the abstractions we've done. So, really it's, any of our customers who are on our cloud continue to work, and anybody who is CPE, there's still a few of those left. They can, there's an upgrade path for them as well, or they can go cloud.
All right, sounds pretty seamless. That's great.
Yeah, it's.
And one last quick question, and I'll turn it over to Habib. You talked a bit about the architecture and like the multi-tenant SBC and that. Take me through just high level. I'm a net new customer. I just want to trial the solution. What are the big sort of high level deployment steps, or what are the prerequisites required to just get up and running from zero to I'm live?
Well, I mean, if it's a new customer, if you're a new customer that just wants to try the solution out, I mean, we have sandbox instances we can throw you that, that's just poke around at it, see if it does what you want. So, you can be up and taking calls in no time at all if you've got Teams. Like if you have a Teams address, I can make you an agent right now. Like it's simply, we provision an instance for you in our cloud. It's very much like if you've ever gone through the process of setting up, say, a new M365 tenant, Same idea. There's obviously there's some per tenant storage that gets set up, spun up on our side. There's some addresses and such that get provisioned. But once that's done, and that's that's a fairly quick process. You're taking calls as an agent in same day. So it's not a and again from an onboarding standpoint, as far as like the teams piece, there's some instructions that from the tenant side you have to provision you have to give the app permissions in your tenant, but once the tenant admin's done that is something that can then be pushed to all your users. So it's something that, for instance, the Ice Bar for Teams application that deploys in the tenant app catalog. So as a new user and a tenant, they can either go in and discover that and just install it themselves, or you can set up a policy that pushes that out. So, yeah, from an onboarding standpoint, we're a cloud service, right? So it's the onboarding's got to be easy.
Cool. Yeah. So for those customers who want to trial it, sounds pretty straightforward. Yeah. Cool.
Yep. And then the getting on board and trialing it is easy. I guess the one thing we'll add to that is it's very easy to get set up and start going. Where the engagement tends to get a little more high touch, and this is sort of just contact center in general, is contact centers it's not a one size fits all type of application. There's a lot of customization that goes into a contact center, and a lot of customization that has to go into a successful contact center. You could very easily go in and through your M365 membership, set up a call queue in Teams and say, well, I've got 5 people and I'm doing an ACD, so I got a contact center, right? And yes, but no. And that's where we really come in, and it's really trying to understand what that customer's process is and what they want to get out of this. So it's things like we do just about every deployment we do, there is some level of application integration. A lot of times that's that'll be to the CRM, so whether that's Dynamics or Salesforce or something homegrown, whether that's integration into a workforce engagement module. So you've got things like workforce management for employee scheduling. You've got voice of the customer systems. Someone who's got like a Qualtrics deployed. We'll integrate with that to say, okay, how do we want to take the interaction data that we have in the contact center, and then okay, well, when someone calls you, okay, you want to know who they are. You want to know, who they are, what they might want, even where were they on your website, right? Like if you have a click to call on your website, that doesn't need to be anonymous. So, if instead of making an anonymous phone call, you have a link on your website that says, hey, register for a callback, that can A, save someone time sitting on hold, and B, provide a whole lot of context on what that person was doing when they wanted to contact you. So it's kind of a win for both the customer and the organization, because everybody's bringing more context to those communications.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
So I think Kurt's got a lot of time on his hands, so we can set him up as an agent for Computer Talk if you.
Awesome.
You sort of quickly touched about this portion of it earlier, Chris, but obviously there were some challenges with regards to the integration with Skype for Business. What are maybe some of the big problems that have been solved by moving into Teams and utilizing the new type of deployment and infrastructure and integrations that you talked about briefly?
Sure. Well, first of all, yeah, direct routing has been awesome for us. Like that calls connect much faster with direct routing. That when we first started bringing people live on Teams with Federation, I know we had some issues where calls were taking several seconds to connect. It was honestly very difficult to troubleshoot, because if you remember back in the Skype for Business days, you had this nice, CLS logger where I could pull up a SIP trace of everything and I could look through the ladder. Teams kind of says, yeah, the call failed, or the call connect. No, the call was fine. It connected. Just we're not going to tell you how long it took to connect, but it got there. So working through some of that early on, and getting up to the direct routing solution, that's it's a lot more optimized. And so I think that was a big win for us. Let me think here. Yeah, other issues have really been kind of around, like, I know with Skype, there were challenges around around conference performance and how many conferences can you run on a system, and so we've had to do some optimization around how that those internals work. But yeah, we're pretty happy with being able to do things, like the direct SIP connectivity to M365. The fact that they did think again of the multi-tenancy there. Like, our solution is by design multi-tenant. So, that's been sort of one of our principles from the beginning. So being able to multi-tenant direct routing has been great. It's fairly low touch to get applications into a customer tenant. So, there's some great stuff there. And then even being able to multi-tenant some of this stuff on Azure, like that component I talked about that was doing the Microsoft telephony provisioning. That's all CI/CD into Azure right now. So it's been kind of a cool journey for us, figuring out, even the configuration for that is code. So, being able to just push new, onboard new tenants by doing a pull request in Git is really cool. So, there's more good stuff like that to come.
Awesome. Yeah, I think with our last discussion, there seems to be less complexity around the federation side of things, and just being able to just send the dial tone somewhere, right? I mean, and hooking it up directly at the customer side, or rerouting the number back to you guys from like that IVR perspective. So I mean, all this, obviously is really great. Definitely love the I guess the new features that you guys have with your product. Also the explanation of the connect and extend and power, because we were a bit stumped on that one as to how it all really works. So definitely appreciate your insights on that. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. Thanks for coming on, Chris, and giving us your insights again. And thanks everybody for listening in, and hopefully we'll catch you on our next episode.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me, guys.
See ya.